My name is Aria. I'm 52 years old and live in Denver, Colorado. For the past 13 years, I was the head of the research department at CorePulse Solutions, a financial tech company once considered a pioneer in automated data processing. On Monday morning at 9:00 a.m., I was called into a meeting on the 6th floor. No meetings had been scheduled that day, and the moment I saw Barbara sitting next to Adam from HR, I knew exactly what was coming. Arya, we need to inform you that the company is going through a restructuring, Barbara began, her voice steady and emotionless. The research department will be merged into product development. Adam placed a yellow folder on the table and gently slid it toward me. Inside, without a doubt, was the severance agreement. 2 weeks' salary for each year of service, 3 months of continued health insurance, and a few pages of career counseling resources no one actually uses. We acknowledge your contributions, truly appreciate them, but I gave a small smile. I understand. Decisions like this are never easy. They glanced at each other. I could see the relief flash across both their faces. They'd expected tears, anger, maybe a heated argument. But I gave them none, because I already knew. 3 weeks earlier, a string of internal emails had accidentally landed in my inbox, a conversation between Barbara and the legal team, and one line stood out. Software transition needs to be completed before Arya exits her role. There was no if, only when. I wasn't an exception to the plan, I was the target of it. Barbara regained her formal tone. We'd like you to clear your desk by Friday. Your laptop, badge, and company phone will be collected that day. Your team will be notified this afternoon. I nodded. I'll prepare. Anything else? Oh, thank you for keeping this professional, Arya. I stood up, gave a polite nod, and walked out. Along the glass hallway, I passed the executive boardroom where leadership was discussing the upcoming quarter, and the CEO was pointing at a massive chart. This was the same man who, just last year, stood before the entire industry, accepting an award for real-time data processing solutions based on the algorithm my team and I had built, referring to me only as one of our contributing engineers. Back in my office, I locked the door, pulled out my personal phone, and sent a single text message. It started, Friday will be my last day. The reply came minutes later. Perfect timing. Dinner tonight. Let's go over the plan. I looked at my desk calendar. It was Monday. Thinking about Friday. I felt no sadness. The Monday after would be far more significant. On my desk sat a small trophy, slightly tilted, engraved with the words, Outstanding Contribution 2020. I picked it up, gently wiped away the dust, and placed it back at the center. Just to remind myself that no matter how hard they tried to erase me from the system, that achievement was mine. That evening, I met Jonah at a small restaurant tucked deep in Forest Hills, a place no one from CorePulse had ever set foot in. Jonah used to be the creative director at Volt Axis, CorePulse's direct competitor, and was now consulting on tech strategy for 3 major firms eyeing the enterprise data processing space. He was the only person I trusted since discovering it. An internal memo titled Full Integration of Omega Architecture into Proprietary Product. Eliminate personal IP markers. It sounded vague enough, but I knew exactly what it meant. Omega was the internal code name for the algorithm I'd created, the one that increased processing speed by 4 times and had quietly been embedded into the core product, ClearCount Pro. I wrote the first lines of code at 1 a.m. in my old Boulder apartment with just a personal laptop and a box of instant noodles. They think you don't know anything, Jonah asked, pouring water with a slight smirk. They're confident I can't act without a patent, and they never filed it. Jonah paused. Never filed? I checked the USPTO records 2 months ago. No applications tied to the Omega architecture under their name. They left it in limbo, because they planned to push you out before you could file it yourself. I nodded. The internal document outlined a strategy to signalize permanent code packaging after my departure. In plain terms, intellectual theft. But they underestimated me. The original Omega wasn't stored on the company's servers. I developed it on a separate branch using my own personal system. More importantly, I had already upgraded it. The optimized versions reduced processing time by up to 46%, and none of it was ever integrated into Core Pulse's official releases. I kept every log file, screen recording, machine timestamp, and even personal email exchanges with independent consultants, all with clear evidence showing the work was done off hours on my own equipment using zero company resources. "What lawyer are you working with for the patent?" Jonah asked, tilting his head. "Your old one, Linda Barris. I met her last week. The filing's nearly done." Jonah let out a loud, amused laugh. "Linda's not just sharp. She's ruthless when someone tries to pull anything dirty." I gripped my glass tighter. "I'm not doing this for revenge. I just want to reclaim what's mine, and this time, it'll have my name on it, no one else's." Driving home, I reopened the file I'd been quietly refining for months, the blueprint of the new Omega architecture version. This is something no one but me had ever seen. Not only did it boost performance, but it also automatically restructured data based on query chains, reducing storage costs by nearly 30%. I knew that if CorePulse ever got their hands on it, they'd stamp their name on every financial report for the next decade. I also knew that if I simply walked away quietly, they'd absorb the credit, assign new project leads, and rewrite the technical history as if I'd never existed. But I wouldn't be silent. I would be ready. 3 days later, I filed a provisional patent application with the USPTO, attaching all my independent development documentation. Linda personally followed up with the patent office. Within 2 weeks, I received confirmation of expedited processing. I also hired a legal audit firm to create a full IP ownership dossier, shielding me from any potential claims of asset conflict. Meanwhile, back at CorePulse, they still believed I was quietly retreating, carrying the blank stare of a woman left behind. 4 days before officially leaving CorePulse, I boarded a flight to San Jose as an independent consultant. First-class ticket, booked under the name of a parent company within the Beacon Core Group. No one at CorePulse knew where I was going. No one could have guessed that the man picking me up at the airport was Noah Beck, CEO of Axis Nova, the direct competitor quietly capturing market share on the West Coast in enterprise data processing. Noah didn't waste time. As we sat in a private conference room on the 27th floor of the Luna Vista Hotel, he opened his laptop and got straight to it. "We've been watching ClearCount Pro for 2 years. The core code isn't innovative enough to stay ahead without Omega. And I know you're the one who built it." I didn't confirm or deny. I simply placed the latest Argon upgrade draft on the table, a version already submitted for patent now in its final review phase. Noah read in silence, flipping through the leather-bound technical brief, his deep blue eyes pausing longest at the graph showing a 49% increase in processing speed from internal pipeline restructuring alone. "Do you know how much this asset is worth, Arya?" I looked him in the eye. "I don't need to guess. I spent 13 years at a company that never paid me what I was truly worth." Noah smiled. "Then let me be the first to change that." He handed me a preliminary contract. A $1,500,000 0 cents signing bonus, 2% equity in Axis Nova, and the title of Chief Data Architect, along with full control of the new R&D division. Most importantly, the company would acquire exclusive rights to the Argon algorithm. If I signed, the press release would go live Monday morning. I didn't agree immediately. I needed something else first. A guarantee that my former engineering team at CorePulse, all 6 who stood by me for nearly a decade, would have a place too. None of them should be left behind in the chaos CorePulse's leadership is about to unleash. Noah nodded. "If you vouch for them, we'll bring them on, with salaries at least 25% higher, and roles that reflect their actual skills. I want loyalty to the tech you created." We sealed the deal with a short handshake. And I knew the moment I walked out of that room, the gears had started turning, this time in my direction. That night, in my hotel room, I opened my laptop and scheduled 6 emails, each with an official job offer, full benefits package, and an encrypted internal memo explaining the real status of Omega's IP. Every one of them would receive it Monday morning. I wasn't pressuring anyone, but I trusted they would understand. On Sunday morning, I received final confirmation from the USPTO. The Argonne patent had passed review and was granted provisional status, enough for legal commercialization. That same morning, I transferred all supporting documentation, development logs, screen recordings, and correspondence with independent experts into the legal vault at Alden and Rothman, our law firm, to prepare for any retaliation from Corpol. That afternoon, I visited a small used bookstore hidden in the Mission District, a place I frequented back in my college days. I picked out a slim volume titled "Strategy is Knowing When to Step Back So You Can Leap Forward," because I knew that at 7 o'clock a.m. on Monday, when the Bloomberg Techline financial broadcast aired the headline, Axis Nova secures exclusive deal with female engineer behind industry shifting data processing algorithm, it wouldn't just be my new investors paying attention. Someone on the top floor of the Core Pulse building would lean back, dropping their coffee, and someone else, Barbara or Evan, would rush to the legal department screaming, "What did she just do?" I smiled at the thought, because this was only the opening move. Monday, 7 o'clock a.m., I stepped into Axis Nova's headquarters in a brand new charcoal gray suit, hair neatly tied back, heels clicking softly against the polished marble floor. The large screen in the main lobby was broadcasting a live segment from Tech Brief. Aria Monroe joins Axis Nova as Chief Data Architect. Axis Nova secures exclusive rights to Argonne, game-changing breakthrough in accounting data processing. The ticker scrolling beneath cut even sharper. Core Pulse at risk of losing control over core technology. The elevator doors opened. Noah was already waiting, handing me a cappuccino and smiling like it was Christmas morning in April. "They're up yet?" I asked, taking a sip. "If not, they're probably spilling coffee all over their keyboards right about now," he replied. I walked into my new office, 29th floor, overlooking the city center. On my desk sat a signed copy of last night's agreement. A $1,750,000 0 cents signing bonus, 2.5% equity, and full authority over the next generation Argonne development team. But most important of all, printed boldly under Clause 3.1, all commercial applications of Argonne must credit, exclusively invented by Aria Monroe. No more being a member of the research team. No more having my name erased from articles. My name was now on top. 8:15 a.m. My phone buzzed. A message from Miguel, my former lead developer at Corpol. "What did you just do?" "The meeting room just exploded." I replied, "Check your personal email. Offer stands until 5 p.m. Within 10 minutes, all 6 of my former team members responded. Each accepted. They'd join Axis Nova in roles ranging from team lead to systems optimization specialist. Salaries up at least 30%. Most importantly, no longer working under names that stole ideas and claimed them on stage. Meanwhile, Core Pulse was unraveling. An anonymous internal source, whom I strongly suspected was Eleanor, my former legal assistant, leaked that CEO Evan had called an emergency meeting that very morning. The slide deck still had the ClearCount Pro logo, but the main question had shifted from "how do we increase market share" to "is our core tech even legal anymore?" I knew they'd scramble to dig through my old employment contract, hoping to find some loophole that would grant them ownership of Argonne. But there weren't any. I'd reviewed every line, every clause. All critical development was done off-on calls, on personal devices, with time-stamped logs from independent servers. 10:45 a.m. Axis Nova released a second statement, sent directly to trade press and financial advisory boards. Beginning next quarter, all entities utilizing data processing structures similar to Argonne must enter licensing negotiations with Axis Nova. Core Pulse stock immediately dropped 11%. Rumors spread like wildfire on LinkedIn. Several major clients had suspended payments pending IP clarification. I sat back calmly, monitoring the market fluctuations, fingers tapping rhythmically on my oak desk. 11:20 IEM. The internal phone rang. My new assistant James spoke softly. Someone from Corpulse is calling for the third time. This time it's the CEO. Tell him I'm in meetings all day. If it's about licensing, they can contact our legal team. And James, yes? Don't forward the call, even if they try 10 more times. He chuckled. Understood. That same afternoon, I met with the full engineering team, half from my old crew, half newly selected talents I personally recruited. Each received a dossier introducing the next project. Are given toward a decentralized and globally distributed financial system. This won't just be an upgrade, I told them. This is a statement that technology can begin on a laptop in a small apartment, but placed in the right hands, it can change an entire industry. The room erupted in applause. I saw not just excitement in their eyes, but trust. I stood there, watching the Argonne architecture projected on the large screen behind me, and thought to myself, this is only the beginning. Just 3 days after Axis Nova announced its exclusive ownership of the Argonne algorithm, Corpulse's stock went into a full-blown freefall, literally. From $114.00 a share, it plummeted to $89.00 in a single trading session. By Thursday, it bottomed out at $76.00, triggering investor panic across the board. On industry forums, the phrase "Corpulse," stripped of its core tech, spread like wildfire. The first casualty? Barbara. The one who once delivered my layoff notice with the robotic calm of a voicemail. That day's board meeting was described by one insider as a bloodbath without order. A contact from within sent me a leaked excerpt of the minutes, including a pointed question to CEO Evan. Why wasn't the Omega patent ever filed, and why did you push out the only person who understood the architecture down to the last line of code? A week later, Evan disappeared from every scheduled meeting. Replacing him was a new name, Meredith Langston, interim CEO, previously a partner at a major venture capital firm. She stepped in under what the media called a historic tech stalemate. The following Monday afternoon, I received a call from her office. The voice on the line was Simon Klein, Corpulse's head of legal. Sarah Monroe, we'd like to begin a good faith discussion about licensing Argonne, particularly for our existing products. I leaned back in my chair, amused. That discussion should have happened 6 months ago, when I first suggested formalizing the patent filing. Barbara told me then that it wasn't necessary. Simon sighed, lowering his voice. We believe there may have been some misunderstandings. No, I interrupted. There was no misunderstanding. I was very clear. Off, hands, personal, equipment, independent proof. If Corpulse wants to use Argonne, your legal team can speak with Axis Nova's legal team. I hung up before he could answer. 10 minutes later, our lead counsel, Marcy, received an email requesting a formal meeting. Before the sit-down, I met with Noah and Marcy to finalize our terms. Axis Nova would allow Corpulse to license Argonne, but under 3 non-negotiable conditions. First, a licensing fee 3 times the industry standard. Second, a public acknowledgement of me as the sole inventor of Argonne across all legal and marketing materials. Third, a complete renouncement of any prior intellectual property claims related to ClearCount Pro. Noah flipped through the proposal, his expression sharp. The hardest pill for them won't be the money, it'll be admitting they lost you. Marcy smirked. They might swallow the fee, but pride? That'll get stuck in their throat. The next day, the meeting took place in a neutral boardroom in Palo Alto. Across the table sat Meredith, her first public appearance. She wore a chestnut-colored suit, eyes focused and direct, no apologies, no spin. We need Argonne, she stated, and we understand what it will cost. I didn't interrupt. I wanted her to say it all. I'm willing to accept your conditions on the promise that the transition won't disrupt our end users. I nodded. If your acknowledgement of me as the inventor is made public within 2 weeks, we'll offer full technical support to reintegrate argon into ClearCount. We signed. And just as predicted, 3 days later, Fortech Weekly ran a front-page headline. The ultimate reversal, Aria Monroe forces CorePulse to recognize the technology they once discarded. The center image, me at the Axis Nova press conference, bathed in light, holding a mic, eyes steady. I don't fight for revenge, I said. I fight so that every creator knows your name belongs on the work you make. That evening, Axis Nova's stock jumped 15%. Meanwhile, CorePulse shareholders opened their latest quarterly report to read. Emergency licensing expense, $28,400,000, 0 cents. And me? I was sipping red wine in my office, feet up, gazing out over the glowing skyline of San Jose. The story wasn't over, but now it belonged to me. 12 months after I walked out of CorePulse carrying a cardboard box and a deactivated badge, I stood on the main stage of the National Tech Conference in Chicago. Behind me, bold letters lit up the massive LED screen. Special guest, Aria Monroe, inventor of the Argon algorithm, chief data architect at Axis Nova. The hall fell completely silent as I stepped to center stage. The lights hit my face, but I didn't squint. I had waited 13 years for this moment. When I worked at my old company, I began. I once heard a senior executive say, "Technology doesn't need names, only performance." I paused. But later, that same man stood on stage and put his name on a product he couldn't write a single line of code for. Quiet laughter rippled through the crowd, followed by soft clapping. I smiled. Not from bitterness, but because I knew this room understood exactly what I had lived through. No one deserves to have their name stripped from the very thing they built with their own hands. After the talk, I walked past a long line of young attendees waiting for photos and signatures. One stood out, a curly-haired woman around 28, wearing a t-shirt that read, "Write, Build, Defend." "I'm Devora, a machine learning engineer from Seattle," she said. "I started documenting every step of my work the day I read your story. I won't let anyone steal my ideas and brand them as their own again." I placed a hand on her shoulder. "You may have just saved yourself 3 years, or more." Over the past year, I'd accepted more than 10 invitations to speak at conferences, industry panels, and mentoring programs, not because I was the winner, but because I forced people to ask the real question: who is actually inventing, and who's just taking credit? Under my leadership, Axis Nova launched 3 new product lines, all based on the enhanced Argon architecture. Revenue grew by 60%, stock price doubled. In our Q2 report, we officially surpassed CorePulse in market value for the first time, a milestone that Bloomberg headlined with, "Rise of the Overlooked, Aria Monroe takes Axis Nova to the top." Noah sent me the article with a fireworks emoji. I simply replied, "Earned." I've never mentioned CorePulse in any of my speeches, not because I'm afraid, but because I don't need to. Silence, in this case, is the most powerful response. I spend my final Mondays of each month at our San Francisco office, but from Tuesday to Thursday, I'm always in the main research lab, the place where I choose the chairs, the team, and the way we build. My engineering team, a blend of trusted faces from CorePulse and fresh talent, created the kind of environment I wish had existed a decade ago. A place where no one is dismissed for being too old to code or too young to contribute. Last week, during an internal meeting, Alyssa, a 24-year-old MIT grad, proposed a nonlinear data model that even I needed a few minutes to grasp. The room went silent. I stood and clapped first, everyone else followed. After the meeting, she came to me, eyes misty. "I thought I'd be shut down." "Not here," I told her. "Here, if you bring something better to the table, you're the first one we listen to." That's the principle I carried with me from years of being labeled as a bottleneck. Later that month, I received an email from the American Institute of Technology. They invited me to join the advisory board for a new initiative called Fair Credit for Creators. The program aims to reform how intellectual property is labeled and credited within tech companies. I accepted immediately because if someone years from now keeps their name on a patent because of one move I made today, then everything I endured was worth it. That morning, I sat alone in my glass-walled office on the 30th floor of Axis Nova. Early sunlight lit up the desk, scattered with the latest technical blueprints for Argon 3. No meetings, no urgent emails, no reports needing immediate review. Just a rare pocket of stillness after 2 relentless years. I opened the drawer and pulled out an old photo, 6 of us, taken right after launching the ClearCount Pro beta. The smiles were still wide, the eyes not yet dulled by office politics. I flipped the photo over. No names written. None of us thought we'd ever need to prove we were even there. A gentle knock broke the quiet. James, my assistant, stepped in. "Aria, you have a letter from Stanford Institute of Technology." I opened the envelope. Inside was an invitation to the Breakthrough Innovators Honors Ceremony, awarded to individuals who had reshaped the definition of intellectual property in American tech. I held the card, thoughtful, then let out a soft chuckle. Not out of pride, but because I remembered how, just a year ago, they had quietly pulled my name from a tech award shortlist, citing pending legal complications, and now they were putting me front and center. I don't blame them. That's how the world works. You're only recognized after surviving every attempt to erase you and still managing to stand. But that doesn't mean I did all this just to come back and prove myself. I never wanted revenge. I don't need apologies from Corpulse. I'm not interested in seeing anyone lose their job or deliver some forced public statement. Everything I've done, from start to finish, was for one reason only. So that 10, 20, even 50 years from now, when someone searches the term Argon algorithm, the first name they see isn't a corporation's, it's the name of the person who actually wrote it. Because that's what all of us, those who write every line of code, sketch every diagram, test every data function, deserve. Public credit for invisible labor. For years, I endured being seen as the support role, referred to as technical staff, talked over in meetings so someone else could repackage my points. Not because I wasn't capable, but because I wasn't loud. But what I learned is that silence isn't always noble. It can be complicity. I stayed silent too long. This time I chose to speak, not with words, but with actions. With signatures on patent filings, with speeches where I named my team, never just myself. By building a company policy at Axis Nova, where anyone developing something off-hums keeps their name on it. Where technical proposals are credited to the original author, no 3 layers of management needed to filter it. By funding the Young Women in Engineering Recognition Fund, so people like Devora, the machine learning engineer from Seattle, never again have to fight for space in a system where others still write the rules. I looked out over San Francisco as the city began to light up. Life kept spinning, but now I was no longer trapped in rusted gears. James came back in, this time without knocking. "You've been invited to deliver the opening keynote at the National Women in Leadership Forum. The theme is Intellectual Property is Identity." I nodded. "Accept. And tell them I'll start with this. Real change in tech doesn't begin with speeches. It starts with small actions, like writing your name on what you create." James smiled and pulled out his phone to take notes. I swiveled my chair toward the night outside. No bitterness, no grand victory to flaunt, just something very quiet and very certain. I reclaimed what was mine, and more than that, I kept it safe for those who come next. Aria's story is a powerful reminder that true recognition doesn't come from luck. It comes from the unwavering courage to defend your own worth. In a world where creators' voices are often drowned out by power and fame, Aria chose not to stay silent. With intelligence, strategy, and integrity, she reclaimed her name and paved the way for a new generation to be genuinely respected. Real success isn't about revenge. It's about rightful acknowledgement. What are your thoughts on Arya's journey and the choices she made? Share your reflections in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more inspiring, heartfelt stories about life and family.